Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our daily word this morning. Glad you could join me for our continued time together as we explore and journey together through our daily word. We are, of course, in this new month of a new year, and that's exciting as we begin and continue our journey together. You can see I'm home a bit this morning. I'm just taking a bit of a break this morning. And the good news for me, and probably for you, is that you can see behind me the sun is streaming through the windows, which hasn't happened for a few days. So it's nice to see the sun. It warms us. It reminds us of God's presence. A little chillier outside than it has been, but we'll still take it over where we were a couple of weeks ago. So today is daily word number 651. So as always, as you carve out time to be with me, whether it's right now or later in the day or later in the week, I appreciate it. And your comments and your saying good morning are always refreshing to me, and I appreciate that as we journey together. So this morning, I've chosen for our text, these are familiar words. They're not new to any of us, but they're interesting words for us as we are in Epiphany, in the season of light, as we are continuing this conversation about the birth of Jesus as it continues to shape us. And we hear these words from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, and then verse 14. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overtake it. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, and the glory as of the Father's only Son, full of grace and full of truth. So it's interesting that for our text, Matthew, if we look at the Gospels, Matthew wants us and tries to convince us that Jesus descended from Abraham by the way of lots of saints and scallywags and all of those people throughout Scripture. Luke goes further. If you read Luke, as we have, Luke gives us this big, long genealogy all the way back to Adam. And he gives us and counts us all the generations leading up to the birth of Jesus. John, who always has to do the most, right? John, who's always the most prolific of writers, the one who does the voiceovers in the movies, right, goes all the way back. Not just all the way back to Adam, but before that, to the beginning of time. And John goes all the way back to the beginning of time, and he says to us, nothingness was there. In the beginning, nothing was there but the Word. And the Word that was with God. And the world that then whirled into being, into creation, all the things that happened. In the middle of that, there was the Word. The Word being Jesus. There was the Word. And it was there that we begin our watch for the coming of the Messiah. It comes to us through warp speed, through waves and waves and waves of generation until it gets to the earth, right? And comes to us as we hear it, as John gives it to us. So John, really goes over the top in this, but why not? Why not? Because it's this remarkable claim that John makes about who Jesus is a claim that's really made about us. John absolutely claims that Jesus was there in the beginning, and that for us, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and it came into being, as John says it, and then the Word became flesh and lived among us as we've seen his glory. Those are powerful, powerful words for us as we live our lives. And as our stories unfold. Our stories, too, are long and varied. Our stories can be traced for us, right, back to our mother's womb. We're going to hear from Isaiah 49 this week in worship. Interesting words that Isaiah gives to us about who we are and who we claim to be. These things matter because the story matters. John's gospel matters because it too is not just a story about Jesus, but it's a story about us. In the beginning was the Word. From the beginning of our lives, the miracle that's you and the miracle that's me, the miracle that is each one of us. There is that God in the beginning, always with us, always living with us, always being faithful to us. Someone asked me the other day how I was doing, and my answer was, I'm tired, I'm sore from therapy, mom's in the hospital, and I'm lonely. And all of that, if you know me well, it kind of makes sense. I'm just tired because I'm tired of everything going on. It just wears you out physically and emotionally and spiritually. Therapy is hard. It's really hard. And then I'm just lonely because, not in a horrible way, but I've made these long drives very early in the morning in the dark from Sydney to Coldwater, Coldwater to Lima, Lima to Sydney, Lima. The other day I went from Sydney to Coldwater to Lima to Sydney to Mississinewa Valley back to Sydney. I was in the car over 4 hours, most of it in the dark. And it's an interesting thing when we find ourselves in the dark, and when we find ourselves alone way too much of the time. It's then, though, that if you're like me, I try to find messages in it. I try to find where God's trying to meet me in my life in those places. And I think I find it, without knowing it, I find it in this gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and God dwells in us and with us and through us all the days of our lives in these unique journeys. And hear what it says. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overtake it. That's good news for you and for me, for our daily word and daily lives. We're in a lot of dark these days. It's winter. Sun sets really early. We have lots of clouds, and it just happens to us. But this reminder from the Gospel of John that reminds us first that God's with us from the beginning, always has been with us, always will be with us, and that even though there's great darkness, the light that came in the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, the light that shines in us, even when we're lonely, if we are sometimes, darkness does not overtake that light. And that's the good news for us in our midst. Stories, our story matters. And it matters because we can place ourselves in this scripture. God's with us, right where we are, in the midst of our life, has always been, has, and always will be, even in the darkness. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and full of truth. I carry that with me, and I hope you will as well, knowing that the darkness, whatever it is, does not overcome the light of the Word. And that's our word for today. I hope it's a good word for you, as it is for me, and a good reminder of who God is. So I pray you'll know of that love and that light and God's love in your life. Know of my love for all of you. Thank you for your prayers for my mom as we continue some rough days. Hopefully things will turn the corner. Know of God's love, my love for you as always. And I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day, my friends.